Greetings and welcome to Stuffology. We're two old friends sit around and talk BS, beat up stuff, on a track-by-track basis, pretty much for the sake of it. My name is JG McQuarrie, and I'm here with my co-host Andrew Deacon. Say hi, Andrew.
Hello.
How are you doing? I was going to say this week. We're still recording face-to-face, so how are you doing after the 5 minutes between episodes?
Yeah, I was going to do my delay on the line thing for a few minutes longer, which is why I paused between you asking me how I was and saying hello. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, I am much the same as I was about an hour ago.
Excellent. Very happy to hear that.
Yeah. And obviously, yeah, being in Glasgow 4 o'clock on Saturday the 6th, I'm only an hour away from not watching the Switzerland-England match, but hearing what happens through the cheers or jeers of residents of this fine road.
Did you say Friday the 6th?
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, probably.
Okay.
Saturday the 6th. Yeah. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. That too. That's okay. By the time people hear this in 2025, they'd have forgotten about the football anyway. So I've just managed to remind them of whatever is about to happen has happened.
Yeah, that's right. We need something to stretch this episode out, David, let's be honest.
Well, okay, fair enough. Yep, because it's George Harrison's first contribution to this album, which is, of course, I Need You, which is perfectly okay. It's the best George Harrison written song to date.
Yes, it's also the second George Harrison song written to date.
Yeah,
well,
and it's
assuming you want to put
it's the best.
Shadow to one side.
It's the best.
It is better than Don't Bother Me. That is fair.
Although don't say that to people and who write comments on Beatles Bible on the internet, some of whom really like Don't Bother Me, to the point where, again, I think it's just an affectation, folks. Come on.
Methinks the lady doth protest too much.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I like that. In the early days, before they knew what they were doing, they was great then. Oh, it was only once they became experts that they lost it. Okay.
Everybody is free to appreciate any era of the Beatles that they so choose. So that's fine.
So this is a pleasant enough song. What could anyone possibly have against it?
I have something against it, which is the volume pedal. I like it. I know it's the most distinctive feature of the song, but I don't like it.
Right. Okay. So we're getting stuck into the weeds quite soon.
Yeah, let's start going.
Okay, all right, you go ahead. So volume pedal. Just imagine there are people out there that haven't got a clue what a volume pedal is. What's going on here?
Okay, well, it's a pedal that controls volume.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. But that's literally all it is. It's just instead of having a round knob that you turn, you have a pedal that you use on your feet.
And so what was occurring with the volume pedal on this track?
Well, what was occurring was it was being used, so it gives it that distinctive wah, wah noise. That's more like a duck. But you know what I mean. Yeah. So it's my best volume pedal impression. I'm sorry, I only have one.
So why were they using that on this track?
Just cause, for the lols. No, because
work your theory through. You can tie it back to how you feel about this song. Come on.
Okay. So the answer is to try something different, to try and give a new sound, to try and quest a new approach. Now,
and why do you think they're doing it on this song in particular?
Well, you tell me. Why do you think they're doing it on this song in particular?
Perhaps because it needs something, because it doesn't really go anywhere.
Well, that would be certainly one interpretation, and one that I might find a relatively persuasive argument. Yeah, there's not a great amount to the song. It's not bad. It's not awful. I just don't like that sound. And it's kind of the dominant feature of the song. And it's a shame. It's not a bad little song. It's quite sweet. It's quite charming.
It doesn't really go anywhere.
No, it doesn't really go anywhere. But, that's okay. It's only his second song.
Yeah.
Again, if you wind back to the second song that Lennon wrote or the second song that McCartney wrote, they're not going to,
And that's the difference, because
really important.
The second song that each of them wrote was probably in 1958 or 1959, and since then, I know they had
like I Lost My Little Girl. That was like McQuarrie alleges that was like the first song he ever, like first proper song he ever wrote, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's in the official bootleg thing. I think he's done it live like a couple of times or whatever. It's not as good a song. This is a better song than that.
Yeah.
Not much, but it's a better song.
Yeah. And I think we need to be reasonably sympathetic to George. In the last episode, which you would have heard a couple of weeks ago, we're talking about the fact that, of course, even though someone might have had a significant impact on the musical nature of the song, they might have written a really important solo, for example, they don't get in on the writing credits because that was all divided up by John and Paul, regardless of whether it was John or whether it was Paul or whether it was John and Paul, whether the solo makes a material difference, whether there's something in the drumming that's crucial, whether or not George Martin in an arrangement did something that was so important to the overall feeling of the song. It's John and it's Paul. So George obviously is looking at them and thinking, I'd quite like a bit of that. They've got a little bit of money there. I think I could also write songs. If they can do it, so can I, which I think was actually more or less an expression that he used at one point.
Yeah.
If those two can write songs, well, they're just a couple of kids from Liverpool like me. I'm a kid from Liverpool. I must therefore be able to write songs. It's slightly specious reasoning, but turns out he could. So I think, imagine the fact that it's the second song he's finished writing. Yeah, imagine that pressure as well. Yeah, he's not had the same chance as Paul and John to write a bunch of songs, play around with them, play them live potentially as well, refine, improve, discard, learn. Effectively, he's learning by being in the room with people who've written songs. But you know what? That is no guarantee that learning is taking place. Ask any teacher, they'll take that. Just because the kids are nodding along, it doesn't mean that they're actually learning.
Any teacher, you say, Andrew?
Any teacher. Well, no, but I mean, there are ways. There are ways of doing it. It's all about checking for understanding. But John and Paul aren't exactly turning around to George and going, "So did you see what we did there? So when we changed the note there from this to this, what we were doing is this." I very much doubt that even they would have been able to explain it in that way. But he was learning by assimilating, and he does a pretty good job. What I find quite interesting though is that what he's not really done is developed a particularly significant melody. It's kind of effective. He soaked up John's penchant for "Oh woman, you done me wrong" type lyrics, which is fine. I don't think they're particularly odious. I mean, he does go on and write some lyrics that are other points in his career, and for all that many students love it to begin with, Taxman's a pretty crappy lyric. "Oh, I'm a rich man. Oh, I have to give up some of my money for the betterment of society. Oh, get over yourself, mate." Anyway, more of that in about 5 years' time. It's okay. It's fine. It just doesn't go anywhere. I mean, the only thing for me that seems to be, two things really. I think the guitar line, the pedal stuff doesn't really mean anything to me. I quite like the lead guitar that underpins it. It feels particularly effective. It sort of supports the melody line as it is. And then there's one line as well which suddenly has a different tempo to the rest of the song, where he's sort of fitting more beats and more syllables into it as well.
That's when it hurt me, feeling like this just can't go on anymore.
Yeah,
it's got a weird,
I like
weird
it.
tempo to it. It's not a straightforward song to play. So yeah, that it does almost sort of staggers at that point, and it kind of it gives a little bit of extra something.
A sense of urgency, perhaps, but beyond that, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I don't think that McDonald actually picked up McDonald to have a quick look at. So while effective in the first 8 bars of its first chorus structure, is let down by an harmonically banal bridge. say it's harmonically banal. I mean, banal is such an interesting judgmental word to use.
Well, MacDonald is kind of famously not a George fan. George Harrison comes off very poorly in that book, in a way that I just don't think you would get these days. Yeah, it is banal. Is such a yeah, exactly what you said. It's a weirdly judgmental way of putting it. Yeah, and it doesn't. It's not. It's that bridge is. Oh yes, you told me you don't want my loving anymore. Is the chords are A, D, E, and B seventh. I mean, they're not complicated chords, but it gives the song somewhere to go. It's repeated twice.
It's no Aeolian cadence or
Well,
whatever
it's
it is.
it's certainly not.
Whatever.
But at the same time, I don't love the line "my loving anymore." That feels like he's just reaching for a standard line off the shelf rather than it being something that he has considered and then written down. I think that slightly undermines it, but I agree with you that extra, that second line in it, can't go on anymore. Da, da, da. And then it's got a weird kind of slightly, I think it's like 3 or 4 bars before it goes back into the verse again, and it's just interesting. It's not quite as simple a song as it seems to be on the surface. It's not a complicated song, but it's not just 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. It's sort of interesting, yeah. Just no bloody volume pedal on it.
So, okay,
Yeah.
right. Well, we'll
Yeah.
we're doing
Get
all of that. No, that line again. Read me that line again.
What? That's when it hurt me feeling like this. I just don't go on anymore. I just can't go on.
The condensed line. Yep.
Yeah.
Is that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sure. If you read the actual words, they sound a bit dull and they're not very interesting. If you actually listen to the actual words, but we know, don't we, that from previous episode, referring to what Lennon says in his interviews in the early days, they didn't give two hoots, not hints. They didn't give two hints. They didn't give two hoots about the actual words. It was the vibe. Well, this is George's early days,
Yeah.
and he's maybe just sort of actually what I need to do is to focus now on getting the right feel to the song. And so actually I don't listen to those words in the way that perhaps I might attempt to listen or otherwise to some of the other ones, because the line works. Lyrically it might not work, but vibes, as it were, I don't know, I'm saying vibes a lot at the moment, but in terms of that feel, I find that it's pretty effective.
It's also the delivery is really good as well, because
Yeah.
just can't go on anymore. It's very kind of staccato. It's almost punchy, and that gives that bridge somewhere to go. It's not the rest of the song is very kind of almost softly sung, but giving it that extra kind of staccato does give it a wee bit of gives it a wee bit of punch, gives it a push.
That's interesting, and I think that's sort of worth reflecting on the fact that that there are definitely different views about this, and just at this point, sort of realizing that slightly worth picking up on some of those, because some people seem to think that it's a really important song. Some people think, well, it's a bit bland and it's a bit dull, and that we should move on. And worth therefore, diving into some of those. I'm just going to pull up the old Wikipedia page, because there's one in particular that I do want to refer to, because it makes me absolutely chuckle. So feel free to fill while I scroll down a screen. Right, so it's a modest, mild love song. Okay, that's fair enough. A catchy pop tune. Okay, fair enough. But it's when I referred to the Rolling Stone magazine in the last one. Rolling Stone album guide author Rob Sheffield in the 2004 edition described "I Need You and You Like Me Too Much" as, quote, the finest George songs known to man. Now, what I haven't done, dear reader, is then actually gone and checked to see if contextually that was what he said, or rather,
being sarcastic?
well, quite, because certainly I have seen a quote somewhere about, actually not through the Wikipedia page, about how this and George's other song, it's just completely gone off my head, even though I've just read the bleeding title out. You Like Me Too Much are effectively central to the album. But when you actually look at the context of that within the article, that's not what's said, because the quote was then very much led to make you think as though they were the central songs of the whole album, which clearly they're not. And the full version of that talks about how Yesterday is the one that is most central to the album, and they're saying, oh yeah, basically saying George did quite a nice job. But Rob Sheffield, further, big step forward in its exploration of themes such as, quote, doubt, loneliness, alienation, adult sexual longing. I think he might be reading a bit too much into this.
Could possibly potentially be a slight overread, yeah.
Or maybe he's been asked to write something and realizes he needs to make it sound controversial. I'm not sure, but he needs to make it sound something more than it actually is. And if anyone managed to get that far through the Rolling Stone album guide and come across phrases like that, I expect to see either post-it notes or bits highlighted or things crossed out with, what is this pretentious pile of cack?
Okay, fair enough. It's. I was going to say that this is a weirdly divisive song. Maybe divisive is too strong, but there are some people who do, like you say, have a genuine, passion for it, and it's an odd song. It's the one Tom Petty did at the concert for George. The one of the very few that wasn't just like, well, here's George's greatest hits. And that also kind of, I guess it says something. I mean, obviously, George and Tom were in a band together, so I don't know. Of all the songs to choose, but it's also nice to try something, a bit different, a little bit off the beaten path. But presumably, that therefore had some kind of resonance with Tom Petty.
Maybe he was slow at replying to the email, and that by the time he saw it, all the
somebody's taken one. Yeah,
all the really good ones have gone. Or I know what I'll do. I'll take what's, I guess, referred to these days as a deep cut.
Yes.
And go back to something formative. It's fine. I can absolutely. I've not heard that performance, but I can absolutely hear it as a Tom Petty type.
I'm pointing at the DVD on my shelf.
I'm not going to watch it.
No, I'm not going to ask you to.
But I can hear. Actually, it lends itself quite well to, I think, to Tom Petty's voice.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that there's a jingle jangle birdsy type feel to it.
Oh yeah.
That's quite effective, and that's fine. That's good. I would imagine if there are lots of other covers, that they're probably very traditional, straight down the line.
It's not a song that lends itself to a wide variety of interpretations, although quite interestingly. Well, I say quite interesting. I think it's interesting. If everybody else can disagree, if so choose. One of the things that the song is based around is sort of variations on the A chord. So that wah 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 wah. Those are all A chords, but they are there's I think it's an A add 9, A sus, whatever. It's playing games with the A chord basically. It's almost precisely the same thing that Dear Prudence does with the D chord. It's just building the song around these different variations, suspensions, and all the rest of it of the chord. That's kind of interesting because it isn't just a song which is being played, like an EAB or whatever, like just like straightforward musical construction. It's trying to do something a little bit different, and it does give a different feel. For all that I don't like the effect in the volume pedal particularly, I still think that's an interesting way of constructing a song. And it's interesting that Lennon basically does precisely the same trick, 4 or 5 years later on the White Album for Dear Prudence. The song was written in precisely the same way, just around a D chord, not an A chord.
listener, I hope you realise that section was all for you, because he completely lost me around the early part of that, and I started wondering what acorns have to do with this song, all of that other stuff. Yeah, good. Anyway, hopefully someone would have got something useful from that.
Well, all right. The TLDR version is constructed in an interesting way.
Okay. Oh, cool. Fair enough. There you go. And what's that got to do with acorns?
Very little.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Look, he's going to write better songs. He's going to sing much better songs. I was thinking that the other day as well when on my playlist, what was it that came out? Oh, If Not For You came on from All Things Must Pass. I just thought his singing improved so much throughout the 60s, to the point where, 69, 70, he is a phenomenal singer when he really cares about his songs, and he really cares about the performance and the production and how it sounds overall. He puts in some astonishing vocal performances. This isn't it, because he's probably quite nervous about the fact he's finally got a song. And, he's comparing what he's written with, first of all, Don't Bother Me, tick. But then, of course, he's got to compare it with, oh, what's that other song? Oh, Help. Oh, yeah, that's quite good, isn't it? Oh, right. Oh, okay. Oh, you've written a song called, what's it called? Yesterday. Oh, that's a rubbish title. Oh, yeah, play me that. Oh, okay. Right. So he's got all of that going on. And so I think we can be a little bit sympathetic, and basically, it's fine to be critical of it, because he's growing up in public, and so I would just say, if I seem to act unkind, it's only me, it's not my mind, and we can move on from there and look forward to even on the next album, and the one after, George writing some significantly better songs, whilst also still writing some that have some lyrics that aren't quite so worked out.
I am very much looking forward to talking about Taxidermy with you as well. Yes, I mean, I think that is kind of also sort of just loop us around to what we are talking about at the top of the episode. The sort of mistake that somebody like Ian MacDonald makes is that there isn't really much point in directly comparing this song to the other songs on the album, because it's a second song. So of course it doesn't hold water with Yesterday or whatever. I've Just Seen a Face, or just take a pick up other songs off this album. That doesn't mean that it should be immune from criticism. Of course it doesn't. But it does mean that it's not going to resonate in quite the same way. So, it's fair to judge it by its own standards, but judge it on the spectrum of songs that George is writing. And like I said, he's going to get significantly better than this. Of course he is. But we're not quite there yet. It's just his way of iterating. He started something, he will work on it, he will get better, and eventually he will become, phenomenal. But we're not quite there yet. But that still doesn't. Yeah. I still think it's an unduly harsh judgment. But like I said, MacDonald is notoriously.
I mean, it's fine. He's started something, and now he's not too sure. So he's got to find ways of pushing that and developing that. So that's fine. Yeah, he's getting there. Yeah. JG has just gone to check how long we've been.
No, sorry, we're okay. Comfortably over the 20 minute mark. We're actually just pulling up the spreadsheet.
I was pretty sure that we weren't going to get over 20 minutes, but I think we've done it by just going over the same points over and over again, and that's fine. But the guitar sounds quite nice, and the section from the film is on Salisbury Plain is utterly pointless. And just dark.
That fits the movie perfectly.
Yeah, and even if you take it into terms of, well, they're just being surreal or absurd on purpose. Yeah, but it's not funny.
Yeah, well, it's definitely not surreal. You could argue that it's absurd. It's not.
Oh
funny.
No, but the shot of the the trying to reflect the music studio, because they've gone to Salisbury Plain to record, and so there's a wall with a window in that looks like it would be from a studio.
Side splitting.
Yeah. It is what it is.
Yes.
5.
Thank you. That's that question answered. Even although I've been critical of the volume pedal, I think it was slightly higher, but when I say slightly higher, I mean 5.5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only saying 5 because we established in the last episode that some of the ones that I've given 6 to, I'm going to have to downgrade to 5. So I know that I'm not downgrading this one, and it's on a par with some of those 6s. If you heard the last episode, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about there. But if not, good luck.
For the sake of just ticking a little box, the last song that you gave a 5 to was "Honey Don't."
Well, I mean, clearly, if I'm downgrading some from a 6 to a 5, the ones that are 5 are going to have to be a 4, which therefore means that Mr. Moonlight's going to have to go into negative figures. I know I didn't give him. Yeah. Anyway, carry on.
Okay, lovely. Okay, well let's wrap things up there. You can really get a hold of us by email. We are BeatlesStuffology@gmail.com. We are on Twitter at Beatles_ology. We are BeatlesStuffology on Instagram, and you can find my blog at www.jgmcquarrie.scot. Please like, rate, and review us on whatever podcast you're using so that more people can find the episode. It always helps. Next time, we are going to be discussing another girl. But until then, keep listening.